What's up, everybody? So, today we have some big news. Um, the problem that have been facing a lot of Christians and people just in general is we have, and I mean we, like a lot of people, man, a lot of people have been affected by this, and it's finally getting to a point where it is basically being stopped. So the Supreme Court, the major uh Supreme Court ruling, have placed a, almost you could say, banned, but more so like a block from minors watching pornography, um or corn, because I don't know if we can say that word, but they blocked it where if there's a age verification ID that you need, and this is really huge because we as Christians, that is one of the major thing that we struggle with. Um, Trying not to watch those things. Um, it is crazy, and we're gonna dig more deep into that after we watch this video. But let's just switch over. This is huge. This is huge. I've been hearing about it on Twitter, um, and I've been seeing some people talk about it. I'm like, oh, that's dope. So, with that being said, let's hop into this video. And before I press start, make sure you hit that like button so this video can go out into the algorithm to people just like you. And yeah, let's get into it. This is on CBN News, so this is huge.
Today, obviously, the Supreme Court upholding Texas's age verification law. This was big news, one of the big cases to come from the court last week. What was your reaction to seeing this ruling come?
Hold on, let me turn it up. I meant to turn it up on my end so y'all can hear it. All right, that should be a lot better.
Down.
I'm surprised. I thought that for sure it was going to be best case scenario a remand where they're going to sit it down to a lower court and they were going to fight over some nuance. But I was shocked, and I think this is a huge deal because it stands precedent for it to be a national implication. So I think this is just a huge deal. I am pumped about it. And to be honest, it's this it's tough to be super excited about it because the reality is that for there not to be age verification in the first place is actually negligent. So it's like the frustration of, okay, we're finally where we should be, and let's move forward from here.
Yeah, I was listening the other day to an interview with Jonathan Haidt, and he was saying everywhere else we've kind of decided, like in the real world, we've decided who's an adult and who's a child. You can't buy alcohol, you can't vote, you can't buy cigarettes, all of these things until you're a certain age. But on the internet, it's kind of the Wild West. There is no sort of protection until we have laws like these. And like you said, we should have had them long ago. But for people who are maybe a bit skeptical or cynical, what kind of assistance, like, is this actually going to help parents, these age verification laws? Are they actually useful? Are they worth having?
Yeah, I mean, number one, age verification since the inception of pornography was just, hey, click a box. Are you 18?
Right.
Sure. And it was almost like, walking into a convenience store trying to buy alcohol saying, I promise I'm 21. So it's no verification at all. And what we've seen, so Louisiana was the first state to actually implement legislation legislation when this was first talked about. And what we saw in Louisiana is consumption went down 8% because guess what? People don't want to leave an actual digital footprint when they want to watch pornography. It's the same thing that, it deters anyone from doing anything they don't want to be seen doing. And I think that's the most problematic thing of pornography is that you can do that without truly leaving behind breadcrumbs. So
that is like, I was thinking too about like adults. So like, okay, so if you're adult, like, just think about it. If you're a Christian that struggle with that, and you go to that site and ask for your ID, you're probably gonna be like, while you doing that, there's really gonna be some conviction hit you, and then you're just gonna be like, no, I don't want my ID or anything tied to this. Think about the big like influencers who struggle with it. They're not gonna want their ID tied to that. They're gonna be like, man, I don't want to do that because this stuff could get out. So I think that is huge, yo. That is huge. It's huge.
I think it's certainly helpful.
All right, so I'm going to ask you this question because obviously the coalition, the porn industry coalition that was challenging this, the Free Speech Coalition, their big claim was that this violated free speech rights for adults, right? So what is your reaction to that? Because that was the argument they were putting forward, that somehow this was a restriction of free speech.
Yeah, I mean, so they're saying that this is an infringement on their First Amendment rights, and that's ridiculous because if you're going to have anything in the public square that has been deemed potentially dangerous to children or just people in general, well, you have to put parameters around this thing. And we've seen there's significant neurological studies that have said, hey, if a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, 8 years old is the average age of consumption, if their prefrontal cortex, which is the thing that allows them to regulate their emotions, if it's around 50% or less developed, and pornography actually deteriorates the part of the brain that is currently 50% developed, obviously this is a dangerous thing for kids to engage in. And as a follower of Jesus, I would say, gosh, the implications regarding like sex, identity, all these things, it has terrible implications, but their pushback to say, hey, you're taking away my right to see something. Well, it clearly, according to the Supreme Court, which I was not shocked that they upheld that. I was shocked that they upheld it completely, but it's not a barrier; it's a boundary. It's saying, hey, if you want to watch it, do the requirement, provide your ID, and if you're 18 or older, then watch it all you want. So it's in no way an infringement on your rights. It's just a barrier.
How do you, Josh, see this practically impacting the porn industry? Because for somebody like me, I live in Virginia. We have similar laws in place. And what ultimately has happened, like in several states, is the largest porn site has just said, you know what, we're going to block the site altogether. You can't even access the site in the state of Virginia. Ironically, they think that that's some sort of win for them, but really our governor just said, oh great, you're doing my job for me. There are a lot of states that are making similar moves, and now with this Supreme Court precedent, do you think that this ends with just porn leaving these states altogether?
I mean, you look back at, so in 2012 in Los Angeles County, which was where 80% of the pornography that was filmed, that's where all the studios were. And in Los Angeles County, they decided to implement a condom mandate. And this was right after I got out of the industry. So I'm on these sets 20 plus times a month, and some people are saying are they actually implementing this? Are there any kind of checks and balances? Every single time I was on a set, there was always a police officer that stopped by and asked, "Hey, where's your permit?" Obviously, they're why they were there. That's up for a different conversation. But yes, a police officer was checking, was there a permit each and every time. So with that said, in 2012, condoms were mandated in Los Angeles County. The entire industry picks up and moves to Las Vegas. So this is something that they've done in the past. So where they can't thrive, will they geographically move? Probably, but then you have OnlyFans and things like that. So the way that people consume and even create pornography is drastically changed. So my hope would be, yes, to your point, where there is the implementation of this verification, like Louisiana, 80% drops off, and Pornhub thinking, hey, or other sites thinking, hey, if we pull out of this state, there's going to be people with picket signs saying, hey, give me back my porn. And that's just not, that's not realistic. So it's interesting to see what they'll do. They probably thought that they would win this to some extent. But the same thing, man, I was at Capitol Hill 4 years ago, and we were talking about this age verification. And before it had even made it to the ears of everyone that was in the room, Pornhub had already created something called VPN Hub, and it was created to go around the VPN that was installed on your phone. And there's many other pieces of technology that exist right now that people are creating technology, and you say, hey, download this on your phone and you can bypass the age verification. So how does that, I think there's going to have to be legislation written with nuances to, hey, you can't use AI to go around legalities. So it's going to be complicated. So I think, will they pull out of every state? I don't know. But I think that and Section 230 just allows social media to be a place where pornography can be housed. So I wouldn't be surprised if Twitter turns into Pornhub, because it would be financially advantageous for them to do so, and they're not far from it today.
Yeah, I think you're referring there to obviously changing technology. People are going to react to this ruling by shifting and doing things we haven't even seen yet, right? And you mentioned AI, the rise of AI, a lot of good and a lot of horrible things are going to come from that. So people are going to be using those things, adapting them. But, you mentioned the industry. Obviously, for those who don't know your story, you came out of the porn industry. You were in it for years. You later became a Christian. You now have been speaking against the industry. A lot of people have said, well, why are we even allowing porn? Prostitution in most places is illegal. Of course, there are moves to try to legalize that. What would you say if somebody came to you and said, Josh, as somebody who used to work in this industry who now speaks out against it, should pornography be banned outright, where we're not even having this conversation anymore? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say because pornography is not regulated. We saw last year there was over 100,000 pieces of content that was on porn sites that were non-consensual, that was underage, and it was. I hate to be crass, but it was rape, and it was child pornography, and there was literally people who were trafficking children, raping them, and putting them on Pornhub, and it was on there for years and years, and it was monetized. And it wasn't one piece, it wasn't two pieces, it was hundreds of thousands of pieces of content that happens on a daily basis. So when you watch porn, the reality is, I've got 43 people who, I'm 42 years old. I've been out of that industry for over a decade, yet I still have videos like on websites. But the reality is there's people that should be living a normal life that have left that industry, that went the path that I went, where I got counseling, I got plugged into a healthy community, I found Jesus, my life was transformed. Now I'm living my life trying to impact the world in a positive way. I'm married, I have kids. We wrote an awesome book together, Billy. But the reality is 43 people that should be the same age as me are dead, and they took their life via suicide or overdose. And when they died, Pornhub said, hey, let's make a compilation film to honor them, aka let's see how we can monetize their death and amplify it for our good. And those scenes are still on the internet. So the probability of you watching porn of someone who took their very life because of the content that was on there, that they didn't want it to be on there anymore, is a reality. And to the people who say, well, people still watch Thriller and things like that, you have been so brainwashed to think that pornography in mainstream media is remotely close to the same thing. It is not. I've never received 1 cent of a royalty or any kind of residual payment. That is not the way that industry works. That industry is built on manipulation and coercion and fraudulent documentation that forces people to do things they really don't want to do, and they hold it over their head and they continue to monetize over it over and over and over again. So yeah, I mean, to the person watching it saying, hey, what's the big deal? You don't know how old that person is. You don't know if they wanted to be there. And the reality is it's damaging your brain. It's impacting society in a negative way. And it's contributing to many things that are drastically evil that you would not agree with.
And you mentioned earlier that explicit porn sites, like websites that are designed just for pornography, the issue is not with them alone. Like places like Twitter, now called X, obviously, and Reddit, both of those sites, and I'm sure there are others, but I know that both of those websites have a major problem with pornography. So with a ruling like this in a state like Texas, Virginia, Utah, I know several others have similar laws in place. Does that mean that those websites, places like X and Reddit, are going to have to start implementing age verification? Because, I mean, really, we could talk about X all day long, because not only do they have a porn problem, they have a child porn problem. But how do you see that unfolding as the days and months move forward?
I would say that, I mean, we have.
Yeah, that is so annoying. The whole thing on X, like, I mean, it is on there. Um, depend on like what is your algorithm is, but like you'll like at the dig, you have to like literally get your algorithm pumping to get, I guess you say, the good stuff, or this more explicit stuff. But the thing is too, it's like it's so annoying because like I'm usually on there for sports, right? And that all I do is talk about Georgia football, and I have a community, a big community, and we talk about Georgia football. But the problem is there's be time, like for instance, there are times when you just strolling and something randomly pop up, and it could be something either explicit or like pointing towards that way. It'll be like, oh, like it'll have like a little clip of a girl doing something, sexual. She can have her clothes on or whatever, but it's just what it's pointing to, and you click on it, and all the people promoting their elves on there and stuff. And what's so annoying is, like I said, you could be strolling, mind your business, and it's right, it pop up, and it can be tempting to click on that. But also, who want to be strolling on their Twitter out in public, and their stuff pop up, and someone else around? That's annoying. That is so annoying. Two, um, like I said yesterday, I was at a family event, and I was just strolling Twitter because I've been keeping up with Football Recruit. And like yesterday was a big day for recruit to, sign on, commit to their schools. And as I'm strolling, I kind of like just stop in my stroll. Like, you know how you be strolling on your phone? So you got your phone, you strolling. And actually, I was actually strolling because, I got some family member that, they do their drinking and stuff, and I don't. And I was doing that, keep my mind focused on something else. And I'm strolling, and I just stop in mid stroll, like, and look up. I'm doing something. I like sit my phone down, and when I sit my phone down, I'm chilling there for like about 2 minutes, not looking at my phone. And then when I go to pick my phone up, there's a girl literally right there, like doing something sexual, and I'm like, I had my phone sitting here open with this on the table, wait around family member. I don't know. I hope no one didn't see that. But they're gonna think I'm some freaked out. You know what I'm saying? And my family members, they don't have Twitter, so they don't know what that is. So what did that look like with me having that open on? You know what I'm saying? Like that's so annoying. So yeah, Twitter, uh, they gotta do something about that because that is annoying.
stop putting the burden on the consumer. It has to be on the contributor, the one that's contributing the content, the one that's creating the content, the one that's distributing content. Because here's the reality: they all use AI to scan their website, and they very quickly identify fraud, any kind of fraud that it impacts them in a negative way, any kind of copyright infringement that impacts them in a negative way. So they need to be held liable for housing what's on their website. So that's why this is a step in the right direction. Section 230 is the thing that allows Reddit, Twitter, X, websites like that to hide, because it allows them to have immunity. They're saying, hey, we didn't post it, so we shouldn't be held liable for it, even if we benefit from it directly. It's on our hard drive. We're making money off of it, but we didn't put it there. We're just taking our cut. Well, you need to be held responsible for that. And I think that in itself is a big problem. And that's the next step in the right direction, that Section 230 needs to be either completely wiped or significantly revamped, because for a site like X to not be held liable for having hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces of child pornography on it is insane. Literally anyone else in the world would go to prison. Most certainly anyone in the United States would go to prison for stuff that's on their site each and every day, yet because of Section 230, they're not held liable.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see, too, how this is sort of, there are certain...
That disgusts me with Twitter. I ain't gonna lie, that kind of made me feel some type of way.
Websites that maybe not very much of the content, would qualify under this Texas law. But if it's 1/3 of the content on that platform or website, it then crosses that line, right? So there may be websites that don't qualify now that may qualify in 2 years, and vice versa. So that part of this will be interesting. I believe it's 1/3 of the content has to be objectionable for young people in order for it to qualify. So it's going to be interesting to watch this unfold. Josh, where can people go to find out more about you and your amazing work?
Yeah, I mean, you could go to my website, so joshuabroom.me, and my social media across the board is I am Joshua Broom. And just to say one more thing to what you said, I think we're just in dangerous waters because, outside of Whole Foods, 10 years ago, you could deem, because Whole Foods is a certified organic store, meaning that there's prerequisites that they have for them to have things in their store. If they're going to call them organic, there's a standard they've set that they're committed to. But 10 years ago, Naked Fruit Juice could say that it's organic, yet it was only made with there was a percentage or an amount of ingredients that were organic, but it could literally have, cyanide in it. It could have something that's incredibly dangerous, something that you would find in a cleaner, yet they would deem it organic because the way that the law was written. That's why it's so important. Like, policy matters because people matter. And it's like, man, you really got to dig into this stuff, because people they were advertising things as organic because it's advantageous for them. They're not trying to sell a healthy product. They were trying to make money. So at the end of the day, when you're going to call something, that's why our language matters. That's why I will never say adult film industry, because the porn is not something that is for adults. Like, when should you watch it? You shouldn't. It's not good for you. So it's pornography that comes from the Greek New Testament around sexual immorality, and it's been written on caves, in Mesopotamia 2,000 years ago. It's always been problematic. Look at Ephesus. Look at Corinth. This is not a new problem, but we're consuming it in a new way, and it needs to be regulated.
Well, Joshua Broom.
That is so good. That is really good. That is really good. That I need to follow him when I get a chance. So yeah, let's talk about it. This is a big problem as far as on sites like Twitter and stuff. They need to get rid of it. They do. I mean, Twitter, the thing is, Twitter, they can make their money off of sports. Like, people talk about sports like crazy on Twitter. Like, Twitter is literally like a news site. But they letting porn get into their site, and they like that now, because now you got people who, man, that's what they look for. I have seen people tweet and say, man, there's nothing like Twitter, whatever, porn. Um, but it, people don't know like the danger of it, right? And so going back to on this rule from the Supreme Court ruling, I think it is going to be really helpful for our children. Our kids need protection. Um, because how did this thing start with us Christians who struggle with it? A lot of us have been exposed to this stuff when we were younger, you know, when we were younger. Now, will it 100% stop everything? No, because when I was younger, my age, we had to go buy DVDs. Well, not buy DVDs, but go steal DVDs from our parents and stuff, or magazines. I do see, you know, that going back to taking place of like, you know, teens, they're gonna find their way around it. They just are. Like Reddit, like they just go on Reddit, go look at it. Or they're going Twitter to go look at it. So Twitter and Reddit need to do something about it. And like I honestly believe that this, like I said, I believe this can be very helpful. It make me feel comfortable. It make me feel very happy that there's years of age verification. So my kids, guess what? They won't be able to access it because in Georgia, the state I live in, that's already have taken place. You can't access it. Um, and that's really good. You can't access it unless you have age verification. And this age verification isn't like click a button, but this age verification is um it is your ID. Hold on right quick, y'all. See when it go. Um but um I think that is really good that we got this in place. It's gonna help our children out. It's gonna help our community out too. Because we need this. We need this. We need this. We need this. This is very huge. This is really good. This is a start. And as y'all know, like I really feel like we close. Like I said, we're close to the end times. Because things are taking place, and God is like putting in things to protect us Christians from falling short, of His glory. I mean, God asks you the question, you're like, man, I put this out here to stop you from falling short. Thing that been, you know, we've been struggling. Like my people been struggling with for so long. Why do you go on that site and go get verified? Like, why do you go to an extra step? Why you go an extra mile? Now, if you fall short of that and you already have, you still can repent, still can, you know, work on that. But I do believe this is really good. Um, the biggest thing is like on the flip side, it's just gonna make sites like OnlyFans like grow even more. To be honest, though, I'll be real. It's gonna make it grow. I think we're heading to a direction where those sites, it's crazy. Those sites are going to like almost no longer exist. You know, that's why I see it's going. Just like the DVDs and stuff, that stuff barely exists. Like it exists, but it's just like it's so old and like vintage that even sites are about to become old and vintage. that now it's just gonna be full of like people going to the OF because people are making money off of it anyway. I know someone personally I went to school with. This girl blew up off of it. Now she's making a lot of money, and yeah, she's making a lot of money. But I'll be real, it don't look like it's her marriage is on a strong foundation. It's sad. It's not that I know exactly what's going on personally, but I can just read like I can like I said I can read people and the husband he don't look too happy. Like deep within I can see like something wrong. And I could tell that he had a problem with it before and probably don't now because she's making money. Um and he probably feels stuck because if he leave, well, guess what? She's making all the money and she literally can take everything because she's the breadwinner now. He ain't gonna have much. So it's just like he probably feels stuck and just like, okay, I let her do whatever she want. And it's just gonna get darker and darker for her. And I can tell that, I can tell also that maybe she love the money aspect of it, but like deep within, like she's probably not too happy about it either. It is she's probably dealing with depression and anxiety and stuff through this stuff because it's tormenting her slowly. Um, and I don't know, I felt the need to say that. I really do because if she came across my page, then she's like, wow. Um, and that's not throw no shade at her, not at all. Because I could tell she also desired Jesus because we went to church. She went to the church that I used to go to, so I could tell she desires Jesus, but she's battling between the world and Jesus, and that's understandable. We all have our own struggles. We all go through things. I battled with trying not to watch things too. Just to be real. So I'm glad they put that up there. So guess what? This is huge. I think this is huge. This is going to help a lot of people in the Christian community. And like I said, I remember when I was younger, I was exposed to this stuff. I was exposed to it, and I remember when I finally was able to like start watching little stuff on the phone. And it wasn't even nowhere near like on the hub. It was just like trying to find little stuff. And man, I was, huh, I knew it was bad, and I ain't even have like a real strong relationship with Jesus, and it was bad. Like I was crying afterward watching that stuff. I felt depressed. I felt like leaving the world. It was bad. It tormented me bad, and then it just got. I kept doing it, and it got worse and worse, and then it led me on to being promiscuous and lustful and chasing women and stuff, and it like destroyed a lot of my relationships and almost destroyed my marriage at one point in my life. So this is huge. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section about this, and feel free to hit that subscription button for more content. But with that being said, I hope y'all have a blessed day. Much love. I'm out.